Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you. I'm also over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472, or you could join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. It'd be great if you could follow or subscribe. That'd be great, or drop a like. Any of the above, or you could just watch. That's just as good as anything I've said. So now that I've got all of that out of the way, this is 79 Days of Hell, the disturbing Turner Simpkins story. Okay, now just before I start, I'm going to do something tonight that I never normally do. Normally I find all my information, I make my own notes, and then the story I put across to you is from the notes I've made. Now, don't get me wrong, I've still got a lot of notes in front of me, but this story, it's new to me. There's a lot of information that hasn't come out due to a decision that was made later on. So there I am, I'm going slow again. But I've decided that I'm going to read part of this story from the court transcripts. Okay. Like I say, don't normally do that. If I read the transcripts, I just make notes from it. But I think to really emphasize just how bad this case is, I'm going to read it from the court transcripts. So I'll begin. I'll let you know when I'm doing that, obviously. So Turner Wayne Simpkins, all right, he was born on the 18th of January 2018 in Nashville, Tennessee. It is an American story, all right. His mum, Sierra Ford, dad, Austin Simpkins. His siblings, he had an older brother called Maverick Simpkins, okay. There is a note online saying that he had a stepbrother and a baby brother. Now look, the stepbrother, I've got a name, and the baby brother, I haven't got a name for him. I'm not going to mention the stepbrother's name because I've only seen it in one place, one source. So I'm not going to mention that. Now, Turner, beautiful little boy. Pictures online, absolutely gorgeous. Big blue eyes, sort of dark, light brown hair. Beautiful, beautiful little lad. Now, he absolutely loved superheroes, especially Batman. Batman was his favourite, I think. He loved Sonic. Now, when I hear Sonic, I'm presuming it's Sonic the Hedgehog. That's how I knew Sonic, so I'm assuming that's what Sonic is. But if it's not, it says he loved Sonic, so if there's a new Sonic out there, that's who he loved. And he loved Catboy. I know Catboy. My child used to watch it. He really liked that too. So he loved dressing up in these outfits, more his superhero outfits with the cape and everything else. He loved dressing up. He was very close to Maverick, his older brother, very, very close to Maverick. But most of all, but there, top of everything he loved was his dad. Austin. Okay. Absolutely doted on him. He was his hero. Austin and him were said to go hand in hand everywhere. Very, very close. Idolized his dad. Like I say, he was his hero. All right. But he was babied by all of the family. From what I could tell from the names I've read, Austin and Maverick had a very, Turner and Maverick had a very big family on Austin's side and I believe Sierra's side. Okay. Now, the reason I'm saying I believe Sierra's side, okay, is because Sierra and Austin do break up. All right. Now, I don't know exactly when they broke up. Okay. But Austin was given primary custody. Now, again, information's not 100%. It's not mega clear. So from what I can, Reading between the lines, I think Maverick might have stayed with his mum. I will not say it 100%. I can't because I don't know. But just reading between the lines of everything I'm about to tell you, it seems maybe his older brother wasn't there. So maybe Maverick stayed with the mum. And then Turner would see his mum at weekends. I don't think it was an ongoing thing. I've read in different sources that there was maybe a domestic violence situation, but again, I can't say that for definite. So these are all just things I'm throwing out there. Don't know for certain. So I'll say allegedly. Okay, I think that's allegedly. It's the best thing to say. Now we get to 2021 and Austin. Well, at some point in 2021, Austin meets Shannon Lee Elliott, okay, who's 23. Seen pictures of her. Okay. Bleh. That's all I can say about this girl. I've read things that said that she was a mean girl in high school. That's all I've really heard about her. Not much else. Now she did have she's got a son, which is the name that I mentioned, the stepbrother I was referring to at the beginning of the story. Again, I'm not going to use his name. Don't really need to. So the five of them moving together, which would be Austin and Shannon, the four of them, Austin and Shannon, along with Turner and then Shannon's son. All right. And this was in Chipmansboro, Springfield, Tennessee. Okay. Now we get to 2023. When I say they got together in 2021, again, I'm going to say allegedly. It's been a nightmare getting the information for this story together, but I felt like I had to do this one. All right. So we get to 2023 and Shannon's got a job at an automotive repair shop. And this job allowed her to bring her son and Austin into work with her. Don't forget. Or the same to be her son as well was quite young, so they're not at school. So they allow her to bring the boys into work. Now, the reason I mention this is there's no, the reason I mentioned I wasn't sure about Maverick, should I say, there's no mention of Maverick going with her or being at school or what he was doing at this time. So it's led me to believe perhaps he was living with his mom. But again, I'm not 100%, and so I don't want to say for definite. And also within this year, Shannon gets pregnant. Okay, so it would be hers and Austin's baby together. All right. Now we're going to get to Sunday, the 23rd of July, 2023. All right. And at this point, Turner is 5. Okay. It's about 4:30 p.m. and 911 are called. And Turner on the phone call, Turner's unresponsive. All right. So when paramedics arrive and law enforcement come as well, little Turner was on his back on the decking at the side of the house. So he's not inside, he's outside. All right. He wasn't breathing. And when they checked his core body temperature, it was at 86 degrees. Now I've looked, and for a child of 5, their core temperature should be about 97.5 to 100 degrees. All right. So his was bordering hypothermia, or it was showing hypothermia. Okay. And they, while they're checking him, they're starting to notice he's got extensive bruising and lacerations on him, on his face, on his hands, on his legs. And what they notice on his hands as well is like what looks like human bite marks on this little 5-year-old. Okay. They tried so hard to revive him. They pick him up from the deck, obviously, and bring him to the ambulance. They try so hard. But Turner Simpkins was declared dead at 4:42 p.m. Okay. So pretty soon after they arrived. Now, the autopsy was done on the 24th of July 2023, so the next day. All right. And the cause of death was put down as chronic and multiple acute blunt force injuries. Okay. Plus malnourishment. Because little Turner only weighed 34 pounds. And for a child of his age and his height, he should have been about 45 to 52 pounds. That would have been a healthy weight. All right. Now, so the manner of death was recorded as a homicide. Okay. Also within the autopsy, there was fibrous tissue. I presume it's like a fibrous, like a scar tissue of the liver, the kidneys, the spleen, the pancreas, the intestines, his bowel. Right. He had a distended purple stomach. He had 5 rib fractures with abscesses. He had a liver hemorrhage. He had bruises to his face. He had lacerations and scars on his hands, on his head, on his face, on his neck, on his arms, on his legs, on his pelvis, on his genitals. He'd internally bled out, and the blood had been pooling in his testicles. He had left optic nerve hemorrhage. He had scalp hemorrhage. He had cortical brain contusions. He had a hemorrhage of the cervical vertebrae. And it just goes on. It just goes on. It's just this child. He was 5 years old. So, of course, when the medical examiner's report comes out, the police are like, right, okay, they've already been speaking to Shannon, so now they bring her in for questioning, okay? And at the time, she said, she explained away the injuries that they could see when they first arrived. She'd said the black eye he had a black eye, was from falling at her work, because she said, I bring him into work with me. Scratches on his legs were from his bike. Scratches on his hands, apparently he did himself. Bruises on his abdomen. She said, well, they weren't there Friday and Saturday, because don't forget that was on a Sunday when the paramedics came out and he was declared dead. Okay. So this is what she had said, but then they bring her in after the medical examiner's report. And she begins by saying, he's a lovely boy. He rarely got in trouble. And they were like, okay, but when he did play up and if he was punished, what would you do? And she was like, oh, he just had to stand in a corner. He just had to have a timeout. And she did really say how lovely he was. She did emphasize this, and I found that quite unusual. Normally in questionable cases like this, the step parent, or sometimes even the parent themselves, are very quick to insinuate that the child was really naughty, etc. No, she was very quick to say how well behaved Turner was, and that he was, he was lovely. Okay. And what she said he'd been away at her mum's all weekend, she said. But then she says, well, I picked him up on the Saturday. All weekend to me is at least Friday and Saturday, at least. But she picked him up on the Saturday, okay, which would make this the 22nd of July. Now, she said on the way back, they stopped to get drinks that he put in his Sonic cup. But when they were nearly home, and she was still going at that point about 25 miles an hour, Turner unbuckled his car seat and opened the back door, and apparently him and his car seat fell out of the car. All right. But when she stopped and picked him up, I mean, I don't know, the car seat would have got out and he'd unbuckle it. I don't. It's all very questionable. but she says he wasn't hurt. Verbally, he said he was okay. And she said the only injuries he had on him from that was a couple of scratches on his back and a bruise on his forehead. She said he was fine. She said he seemed okay, and she just gave him some Tylenol. She didn't take him to the hospital to double check, just to check out he's just fell out of a car at 25 miles an hour. No. She just gave him a bit of Tylenol, which I think is the equivalent of our Calpol. I think it's, a little bit of a headache maybe. Now, the police were so suspicious, quite rightly. Nothing she said made sense. But what they did, they took her car as evidence. And when they checked it, the child lock on the driver's rear side, okay, child lock was still on. Okay, so how would he open the door? And plus, Turner's Sonic cup that I mentioned to you, it was also in the car seat, undamaged, with liquid still in it. The car seat itself, when they checked that, same, no damage, no scratches on it, nothing, still sat there in the car as it should be, right? She went on to say that Austin had come home later that night, gave Turner a fist bump on the Sunday morning, though, before he left the house. I don't know if it was to go to work. She just said when he left the house in the morning. She said Turner got up at 10 a.m. So this is the Sunday morning now, after this supposed falling out of a moving car. She said he got up at 10 a.m. but they both had a stomach bug apparently, and they were both being a bit sick, her and Turner. All right. But she said he was okay up until around 3:45, 3:50, so around that time. And then soon after, he becomes unresponsive, which is when she called 911 and they arrived at 4:30. So apparently 45 minutes previous and less than an hour before he's declared deceased, he was fine. He was just great. He was golden, apparently. All right. Police do a reenactment, all right, of Shannon's chain of events. So they get a car, they get a child-size body dummy, okay, so around the same size as Turner was. The car seat manufacturer actually sent 2 brand new car seats so they could, do this test. But the tests prove her version of events was untrue. They couldn't have happened. It was just quite obvious. I mean, fair play to them for going through that process of events to prove her wrong, and they did. It couldn't have happened that way, all right? So the TBI, which is the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, upon learning that Shannon would bring Turner into work with her, they went round there to her job, to her place of work, and they noticed there was CCTV there. So they retrieved this from the repair shop that she works at. And they reviewed 79 days, okay, from the 2nd of May 2023 right through to the 19th of July 2023, which is obviously 4 days before he dies. All right. So I think it's up till Wednesday. All right. There was 1,896 hours worth of footage that they went through, right? And those dates showed 43 days of which Shannon was in work with Turner and her own son, all right? Now, just a quick heads up, her own son, he was perfectly fine. Not a mark on that child. That child looked a perfect weight, not malnourished, and no marks on him whatsoever. Just to say that. Okay, and wherever Maverick was, Maverick's not mentioned again. So again, like I say, all I can say is with his mom or he's with another family member, because there's no mention of Maverick again. All right. So On the 29th of July 2023, there's a celebration of life held for Turner at the Chapel of Cheetham County Funeral Home. I've looked online, and when it had listed in the obituary, it seems like he had a lot of family, a lot of he had great grandparents, cousins. He had a lot of family, aunts, uncles. It seemed like Turner really had a lot of family that doted on him, that loved him, but it would appear didn't see him very often once Austin had got with Shannon. That, reading between the lines, that's what it appears happened. Okay, so in March 2024, Shannon is arrested. So she was okay for a good 6 months. I bet she thought, I'm golden. You know, I said he fell out the car, so they must have believed me. She's arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of aggravated child abuse, neglect, and endangerment, plus child torture. All right, quite strong charges. Okay, she was held on a $1 million bond as well. All right. Now we get to July of 2024. So a year ago. And she pleads no contest. I hate no contest. I genuinely do. I don't like no contest. I don't know why it's an option. Now, it means that there's no trial, all right? But she's not pleading guilty, but she's also saying she's not guilty. She knows the evidence that the prosecution have got, and so she's pleading no contest to that, but she's also not saying she's guilty. Okay, but on doing this, when you plead no contest, you also don't get to appeal whatever the result of that is. Okay, so it means there's no jury, there's no trial as such. It's down to the judge, but the judge does get to hear what the prosecution would have put across had a trial gone ahead. Okay, so this trial by judge, in effect, goes ahead in August of 2024. All right, now the judge's name is David D. Wolf. That's the judge. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, like I say, it's not something I would normally do. But because there's not an actual trial where I could make notes of what witnesses have said, etc., I'm going to read you the transcript of what the prosecution put forward, of what they would have said had this gone to trial. Okay. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna begin reading it now. Okay. Now bear with me. I did get it ready. Okay, this is a 79-day time period. As I've said, it was 43 days on video that show Shannon and Turner, and this was based on 3. All I'm going to read you is the transcript of 3 days. This is 3 days, and it's not full days. It's just little segments of the 3 days of little Turner Simpkins' life whilst living with Shannon. Okay, that's what I'm going to read you. All right. Okay, so here we go. On May the 3rd at 1 p.m., okay, Shannon and Turner remain on the couch. At 1:07, Shannon can be seen talking to Turner, and then she throws her phone at him. She drapes his blanket over him, and she gets up to go to work and then returns to the couch. Now, there are co-workers, but they're not apparently in this particular area. There is also her son who is there with them. okay? But from what I can tell, Shannon is on her own in this office with Turner and her son, all right? At 1:40, Shannon goes to the restroom and then Turner uses it just after her. Turner exits the bathroom and Shannon assists in pulling his pants all the way up. At 1:28, Shannon can be seen directing Turner to watch the TV. She hits his knee with a phone and confiscates his books before draping his blanket over him again. She again begins directing him to watch TV at 1:31. She positions him on the couch, lifting him up by his upper arms. At 1:32, Shannon gets off the couch and hits Turner with the side of her fist in the head on the way back to her desk to answer the phone. She returns to the couch and continues to direct him to watch TV. At 1:32, she punches him in the abdomen area. She punches him in the abdomen area once more, then approximately 5 more times before getting up to answer the phone at 1:33. She concludes her phone call and walks back to the couch, aggressively adjusting Turner on the couch before punching him twice in the abdomen with her left hand and then again with her right hand. She punches him 4 more times with her right hand and then hits him with her left hand. At 1:35, Shannon lays back on the couch, lifts her leg into the air and kicks down on Turner, causing him to bounce upward from the couch. Turner is visibly crying and she directs him into the corner. Turner is holding his abdomen and Shannon summons him to her. She speaks to him for a few more seconds and directs him back to the corner. At 1:36, while Turner is in the corner, and at 1:38, she flicks him in the eye. She grabs him by the jaw and brings her face close to his and stays in this position for several seconds before kneeing him in the abdomen, lifting him off the ground by his right arm and putting him on the couch. Turner is crying and writhing in pain. He sits up on the couch at 1:39. She begins directing him to watch TV before punching him in the abdomen. She smacks him and then she begins strangling him. She strangles him for 30 seconds. His face is visibly turning red. Once she releases him, she kicks him in the face twice. Turner is now on the opposite side of the couch and Shannon is in the middle of the couch. She drags him by his legs towards her, blocking him from being seen by the camera. She appears to squeeze his throat with her left hand for several seconds before releasing. Turner is directed to go to the corner again, and as he is getting off the couch, she kicks him in the abdomen with her right leg. Turner is visibly crying very hard and clutching his chest and his abdomen. Turner goes into the corner at 14:01, and at 14:02, Shannon grabs Turner by the throat and lifts him off the ground, carrying him into the bathroom in the air. They remain out of sight until Shannon exits the bathroom at 14:09. Turner exits the bathroom shortly after her, pulling his pants up. Shannon positions Turner on the couch. She checks him over, appearing to look for injuries, and goes back into the bathroom. She mops the floor of the bathroom. What was she mopping? And sits back on the couch at 1:51. She talks to Turner briefly before tossing his water bottle at him. At 1:53, Shannon directs Turner to watch TV before kicking him in the face. She kicks him in the face again before directing him to go to the corner, kicking him once more on his way off the couch. Shannon gets off the couch at 1:54. She hits Turner in the back of the head with her hand. Shannon changes the TV channel and walks back towards the desk, hitting Turner again in the back of his head while his face is in the corner. She turns around and walks back towards him, kneeing while he's still standing in the corner. She knees him again in the abdomen, causing him to fall to the ground on his knees. She knees him again, this time holding him up by his arms. At 1:55, Shannon lifts Turner's hoodie to look at his stomach. She directs him back to the couch at 1:56. She leans over the opposite side of the couch and bites his hand. She aggressively turns him inward towards the back of the couch. By 1:57, Shannon gets off the couch and readjusts Turner before smacking him. She sits back on the couch and lifts her leg up before kicking him. At 1:59, Shannon plays on a phone on the side of the couch while Turner stays in the corner for the remainder of this 1 hour. This is 1 hour on May the 3rd of his life. That was 1 hour that all that was done. We go to May the 19th from 11:18 a.m. to 11:24 a.m. Again, the defendant is with the victim at a place of work. At 11:18 a.m, Shannon is motioning for Turner to watch the TV. She then reaches over and pinches his cheeks and shakes his head. She then grabs him around the neck with both hands and jostles his head and his neck, and is clearly holding him tightly. She then balls up her hand and acts as if she's going to hit him. Shannon then grabs Turner by the ears and shakes his head. She then grabs him by the hair and then his neck again. Shannon grabs Turner by the neck with both hands where her thumbs are on his throat and hands are wrapped around the back of his neck. She leans forward towards him and is clearly squeezing his neck with force. She's even visibly straining as she does this. Shannon grabs Turner by the throat with her right hand and pushes him back against the side cushion, pinning him there. She holds him there for approximately 10 seconds until Turner is able to twist his body out of hold. At this point, you can clearly see that Shannon has Turner by the neck and is squeezing it severely. Immediately after this, she lets go. She looks at him as if inspecting his neck. She's touching it gently and motions for Turner to lift his head so she can see his neck a bit better. As soon as Turner exposes his neck, Shannon grabs him again by the neck with her right hand and pushes him against the couch by his neck. She repositions her body so she can get more leverage to push against Turner. Turner is swinging his arms and legs widely. He's 5 years old, in an attempt to get free, but Shannon is able to maintain her hold on his neck. She holds Turner by the neck for approximately 30 seconds. Her own son is sitting behind Shannon and appears to say something, which prompts Shannon to let go. At 11:20 a.m, Shannon again sits Turner up and motions him to raise his neck as if she is going to look at it. He raises his neck again. Once he does this, she again immediately violently grabs him by the neck with her right hand. She holds him by the neck, very clearly squeezing and forcing him off the couch. He's about to fall off the couch and Shannon lifts him up by the throat and brings him back to her lap. Turner is very clearly struggling and has both hands on Shannon's hands, trying to pry. Pried off, she holds him by the neck for approximately 60 seconds until finally releasing. At 11:21 a.m., Shannon is continuously motioning for Turner to look at the TV and slaps him on the face with her hand. She then grabs his right hand and appears to bite it. At 11:22, Shannon grabs Turner by the head with both hands and appears to be sticking her thumbs in his ears on both sides and squeezing. She again motions for him to look at the TV and grabs him by the neck with her hand, right hand on the back and her left hand on the front. She holds him there for approximately 15 seconds. At 11:23 a.m., Shannon grabs Turner by the head and hair and forces his head up, holding it there for several seconds. She punches Turner in the abdomen 3 times and takes her right elbow and shoves it into his midsection and gets on top of him, pressing all of her body weight down on her elbow and Turner. She then holds Turner by the neck and throat area with her left hand for several seconds and then punches him in the chest area twice and once in the face. At 11:23 a.m., Shannon is pointing towards the TV and then hits Turner in the face with her right hand. She then grabs his hand violently by the top of his hair and forces his head back while pointing at the TV. 11:24, while still holding Turner by the hair on the top of his head, Shannon begins to shake Turner's head violently. She releases and then grabs it again, shaking violently. She does this 2 more times. Shannon motions for Turner to get up and go to the bathroom, which he does with the light off. On July the 12th, 2023, just a few days before Turner's death, at about 5 p.m., Shannon is again in her place of business with Turner. Shannon exits the bathroom at 5:02 and her face appears red. She opens the bathroom door again, but it appears that Turner is also opening the door from the inside. Shannon speaks to Turner for a second and appears to be looking for something before she takes a seat on the couch. Turner exits the bathroom at 5:12 and Shannon reaches for his face, grabbing his jaw and neck and looking him over, appearing to check for injuries. She takes his mask off because at this point, Turner Simpkins is now going to her work with a mask on, a comic book mask on, it says. So I'm assuming it's his Batman mask to cover his bruises on his face. She takes his mask off and looks in his hair, brushing his hair with her fingers. She places his mask back over his face and shoves him out of the bathroom doorway. Turner puts his shoes on and stands and waits, adjusting his mask. He goes back into the bathroom where Shannon is at 5:14 and she exits soon after. He exits the bathroom and his entire face is bruised. She directs him to move his face around, checking again for injuries. He goes back into the bathroom. She walks into the front office, closing things down. Turner exits the bathroom. He grabs his backpack and Shannon uses a flashlight on her phone to look at his face just before she hits him in the face again with an open hand, knocking off his mask. Turner puts the mask on awkwardly over his face, grabs the blanket he vomited on earlier, and they exit the building on the interior camera. On the exterior camera, Shannon opens the door for Turner and he gets into the car. Shannon has gotten into the driver's seat but gets out and opens Turner's door again. While the view is mostly obstructed, it appears that she is hitting him again while he's in the back seat of the car. She gets into the driver's seat and the vehicle exits the parking lot. This is a snapshot of 2 hours and 6 minutes of Turner Simpkins' life. That's all I've done. That's all I've done. Okay? That's all I've told you. I've read it direct from the transcripts from the trial. Something I would not normally do. But I think sometimes with these stories, when I just say a child was beaten, a child was malnourished, a child wasn't fed, I think when you hear it broken down like that, which I don't know if it would have been had it gone to trial, I'm presuming they would have shown it to the jury. But to hear it read out line by line, it's just exactly what I've told this story. Devastating. And that's only 2 hours of what this poor little boy went through. And there was 43 days on video. That was just a snapshot. This was all of those 43 days. Similar, strangling him to the point of unconsciousness, biting him, punching him, kicking him, throwing him across that office. This is what this child went through. Okay, so the judge, of course, finds her guilty, and she's convicted of murder, plus 2 counts of aggravated child abuse. She's sentenced to life. Now, I'm assuming she did this no contest to avoid a trial, because I believe, because of the first degree murder charge, I believe that the state would have gone for the death penalty. I do. So what she actually got was life, with a minimum of 51 years she has to serve before she can go for parole. And of course, because she's pled no contest, she can't even appeal this. So she will be in jail for 51 years. I believe she's 27, so she'll be, what, 78 at that point. Now, the judge actually does say, based on what we've heard today, it's unlikely you are ever going to see outside, based on what happened to this child. I've never heard a more horrific statement of facts in my entire life. And what I will say is, while the prosecution was talking, she said that the defendant, i.e. Shannon, she'd strangled Turner Simpkins during that time, during those 43 days, at least 74 times, okay? And as I said, some of those appear to lead to loss of consciousness. And then she actually physically struck Turner, 5 years old. She physically struck him, and it's documented, over 1,073 times. 1,073 times she struck this child. And at that point, when that's said, I mean, the judge sat and listened to everything that was stated by the prosecution. But when she said that and broke it down, you actually see the judge sit back, and it's a reaction you don't normally. They don't tend to show those kind of reactions, but even the judge couldn't hold off how he was feeling at that point. Now, in January of 2025, Austin Simpkins, because you might be wondering, what about Daddy? Where's Daddy in all of this? Where was Daddy in all of this? Because obviously this child was getting beaten black and blue. They had just the external injuries. And all right, he was at work, but you're saying he didn't see anything when he got home? Well, Daddy Dearest must have thought, well, it wasn't me. So January 2025, Austin Simpkins, after the TBI, so the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, had done all that they're investigating, they had come to the conclusion that there's no way he didn't know, and there's no way he didn't sit and either watch it or know of that this was going on and not get help for his child. So Austin Simpkins, age 29, has been now charged with and indicted for child neglect, child abuse, and child endangerment. Now that's still ongoing, so I can't give you any more information at the moment about him. But I just thought I was so relieved to know they've got him too, and so they should. There's nothing to say he was involved in it. Whether that will come out depending on what he pleads, but you didn't know. Is that you really? It's a stupid to try and think that you would be believed that you didn't know, as she thought it was that people would believe he fell out of the car. So yeah, there was a family member that had come forward who had remained anonymous, who'd just spoken about little Turner, and she'd said he was the sweetest. I mean, she was crying when she spoke about him, but she said he was the sweetest, kindest, most gentle little person you could ever meet. She had the cutest little blue eyes. He wouldn't hurt a soul, and he was a daddy's boy. He was a daddy's boy. And I told you at the beginning, he doted on his dad. His dad was his hero. I can't imagine how betrayed that child must have felt. And she was asked what she would ask Shannon if she ever had the opportunity to do so. And she just said she'd ask, how could she have done this? What did he do to deserve to be treated and tortured like that? That's what she'd ask. And she just said, who could possibly humanly do this to a child? She was very upset in the interview. I don't know why she wanted to remain anonymous. Maybe it was because of Austin. And I don't know if he was trying to stick by Shannon. Don't forget, she had been pregnant with his child. I presume she'd had the child by the time she was arrested. And, you know, there's been no mention of the child. But yeah, I'm glad they've got him. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be with him, and I will update the story. I genuinely will, because I will be following it. But I hope he's made an example of. I do, because I've done too many stories where the biological parent brings someone into their child's life and then sits back and watches the child's slowly destroyed day by day. And then nothing happens. They get the person who's done it. We've done 2 cases where the mums struck plea deals, and walked away. And one of them did nothing, did no time whatsoever. I'm just hoping this isn't one of their cases, those cases. But yeah, that was 79 days of hell, the disturbing Turner Simpkins story. Now, as I've mentioned, there's a lot of information still coming through. I'm presuming there'll be more. If Austin goes to trial, more will come forward, and I will update it. It is a first for me to read from transcripts from a trial. I wouldn't, like I say, I don't normally do that, but I felt it was important to put across exactly. I mean, it was only 2 hours in his life, but I felt it was important to put that across. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you'd like to subscribe or comment, that'd be great. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me again. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.